Wait! Please wait! Thank you for saving me. But who are you?
Sam Rye.
Sam Rye Western is a third-person crowd fighter on the PS2. It's a spin-off of the Way of the Samurai series by Japanese game developer Acquire, and arrived onto Western shores around 2005. Much like the other game I reviewed, Eve of Extinction, Samurai Western is what I would consider a B game, but not for the same reasons. Where EOE felt like it was earnest in its cheesiness,
You said so yourself. The auriculum is attuned to our own soul's instincts. We didn't want to die. What?
Samurai Western is definitely tongue-in-cheek with its premise.
We don't have any foreigners around here, so why don't you just move on? We don't want any trouble.
Pardon me, mademoiselle. I heard that some foolish person has been going around sticking his nose into our business. You don't know anything about that, do you? You're just a little too late. So, it's you. You are quite a handsome man. It's a shame that you have to be killed. But I'm afraid the decision is out of my hands.
In Samurai Western, you play as Gojiro Kiryu, a samurai on a mission to find someone he believes to be hiding out somewhere in the American West. Gojiro crosses paths with bandits and outlaws preying on the surrounding area, and they all happen to work for a mysterious figure known as Goldberg. Against everyone's warnings about Goldberg's chokehold of the towns and the mine, Gojiro cuts a swath through the outlaws' ranks to find his target. From the moment I started the game, Samurai Western had won me over. Just take a look at the intro FMV before the game even starts. See how Gojiro dodges bullets and takes out entire armies of outlaw cowboys? That's the entirety of the game right there. Samurai Western's controls are very easy to grasp, and by the end of the first mission, you'll have more or less complete mastery of Gojira skills. Square is your attack button, and every sword swipe will propel you forward as you cut through Goldberg's men. Triangle is the grapple button. You can use it to pick up small crates to carry around as cover to absorb gunfire, and to throw them back at enemies. You can also use it to pick up downed enemies and backstab them as a follow-up attack. Circle and R1 perform the same action, which is either a deflect maneuver with your blade when you're standing still that can avoid damage if properly timed, or more importantly, a dodge step that lets Gojira juke through bullets as he makes his way towards his target. If you time your sword swipes just right, you can even deflect incoming gunfire back towards the shooters. Dodging and deflecting are the most important skills to understand in Samurai Western. If Gojira takes too many bullets, he goes into a knockdown state, and then becomes vulnerable to juggling from enemy gunfire. On higher difficulties, it's very easy to get stun-locked by the sheer volume of fire you get by all the surrounding enemies. If you do get knocked down, you can instantly recover by pressing the jump button just as you make contact with the ground, and it will negate the knockdown penalty you would receive at the end of the mission. The ideal way to play Samurai Western is to never stop dodging. Juke your way through the wall of bullets and then take out everyone in your path. As you deal damage to enemies, a red bar will fill up underneath your health bar. When it's fully charged, you can activate Master Mode by pressing L1. Gojira goes into a berserker state where he's immune to all damage, and any attack on an enemy is a guaranteed one-hit kill, and even deflected shots will always result in decapitation. The game will keep count of how many men you mow down during Master Mode, and this gets factored into the grading at the end of each mission, along with time spent during the mission and number of overall kills for the mission. There's a damage penalty for the amount of fire you took during the mission, and while it's virtually impossible to avoid damage in the game, it's pretty easy for the most part to not stay in the red with your final score. You can get bonuses by never getting knocked down, and the proficiency bonus, which I assume takes into account the number of times you dodge or deflected fire. The further you progress into the game, the more swords you unlock, and there's a total of 5 stances that each sword falls under. Some enemies will drop silver coins when they die, and these coins can upgrade your equipment when you collect 10 of them. The game keeps track of each weapon's progress separately, so you don't have to remember how many coins your favorite sword will need to upgrade. Every sword type has a variant of Master Mode if you activate it before completely filling up the bar. This is supposed to offer more choice for the player, but in my opinion, none of the alternate modes were as good as a full bar, even though you could deactivate them at any point. Some of them have specific penalties that just don't seem worth the trade-off. Along with new swords, you can also unlock accessories as you progress in the game. This is where Samurai Western reveals its way to samurai pedigree. These items are cosmetic and can offer passive buffs, but the thing I found most impressive about them in Samurai Western is how customizable they were in terms of positioning them onto Gojira and even adjusting their scale. You can also upgrade the effectiveness of these accessories by collecting gold coins that enemies occasionally drop. An odd quirk on the accessories is that there is a weight limit to how many items you can equip onto Gojira. I thought this was a weird feature for what was mostly a cosmetic thing, but considering that accessories provide passive buffs, it might be a way to keep players from cheesing the game through items. Besides coins, enemies drop various pickups that are similar to what you'd find in Dynasty Warriors. Meat cuts refill a small portion of health, whole chickens restore a greater amount, tequila fills up a portion of the master meter, cowboy boots provide a speed buff, and gunpowder barrels give a damage buff to Gojira's attacks, and even have an explosion effect for added flair. I'm surprised at how many enemy types Samurai Western has. Most of them are cowboy gunmen, but there are a few standout enemy types. The game is not afraid to have anachronisms, if the premise of a samurai in the Old West wasn't enough of a clue. Some gunmen just straight up carry Tommy guns, and all the bosses have very distinct and memorable personalities. Something I greatly appreciate Samurai Western doing is that once you reach a boss encounter, the game will always put you at max health regardless of your state as you reach the boss. The person Gojira was looking for is his estranged brother Rando, who gave up his life as a samurai and became a hired gun for Goldberg. Not surprisingly, he's Gojira's Virgil, and he's a great foil to Gojira. A small detail I liked about the writing is that when the brothers are talking to one another, they always speak in Japanese, but around other people they talk in English.
一杯やるか、ゴージロ。バーボンというこの国の酒だ。なかなかいけるぞ。
無用。
だからお前はダメなのだ。異国の酒を飲め、飯を食らえ、女たちを抱け。そうせねばわからんことがある。
Oh, there you are. Rado says he wants to meet you. He's waiting at the saloon. Why do you two have to fight? I don't understand all this samurai business.
A samurai lives and dies for honor. That is what it means to be samurai.
Beautiful, but so sad. I'll never understand, man.
This game has a ton of small, charming touches. Enemies will bark out canned lines to signal when they're going to attack. So you won't get blindsided off-screen, and every enemy type requires a specific approach. If you dodge a large amount of gunfire in a short span, either from the Tommy guns or the shotgunners, the enemies who miss your shots and their nearby buddies will throw a little tantrum, and you can use this to distract them while you kill the ones that pose a greater threat. The game ends up having a similar vibe to classic Doom, where once you understand how each enemy type behaves, you're pitted up against different combinations of enemies, and are expected to do threat assessment while you're in the heat of battle. You can take out a few gunmen who are nearby, but if you don't address the demolition dwarves tossing dynamite near you that are across the map, you're most likely going to lose a good portion of your health. You can't dodge sniper fire as easily as you could pistols, so you need to time your dodges better or deflect the shots back. The story gradually turns Gojiro from a foreigner into a folk hero among the townsfolk, to the point where they refer to him endearingly as Sam Rye. That was the cutest touch in the game, and it took basically the penultimate mission for me to get that.
Anyway.
思い出したよ、ゴージロー。いつも泣きながら俺の後ばかり追ってくる幼い日のお前の姿を。ついには川屋の中にまでついてきて、よく母上にたしなめられていたな。
What? 俺は兄上のような立派な侍になりたかった。だから
立派だとも。お前は俺の誇りだ。一つ頼みがある。ゴールドバーグに敗れた時、奴は俺の刀を奪った。思えばあの時から俺は心を失ってしまった。だからゴージロー、刀を、俺の心を取り戻してくれ。兄上！
You're safe, Mr. Samurai!
Samurai sure are amazing.
I'm genuinely impressed at how Samurai Western was able to take 6 stages and use them over the course of 16 missions. The story has you going back and forth to locales taking out Goldberg's men, so if you easily get bored overlooking at the same environments, you might not like Samurai Western. The game really captures a look and feel of a Western setting, and while some levels can feel a bit boring and even resemble one another, the opening town and the ghost town come to mind. There are some areas that really stand out in comparison, like Goldberg's estate and exterior, and the abandoned mine. The music is fantastic, and another feature of the game that caught me by surprise with how much work was put into it, considering how this game feels like a budget title. I've been playing some of it during the video, and the soundtrack covers a wide variety of moods. The first mission's track has notes that harken to Ennio Morricone's work in Sergio Leone's spaghetti western films. And the abandoned mine has a very Eastern sounding vibe that gives a winding level a sense of mystery. Once you beat the story, there's a ton of post-game content you can get into. As the game progresses, you unlock extra versions of certain missions. These are some of the hardest encounters you'll face in the game, and my earlier comparison to Doom works here as well, because some of these missions feel like a Doom WOD, in that you will come face to face with the most sadistic encounters the devs can think of. Some of these extra missions will have little story tidbits that reveal more of the world, and some of them present Gojiro as the folk hero Sam Rye, instead of the selfish revenge seeker he was at the start of the story. If you're into world building, that might be enough to keep you motivated to put up with this.
甘い
Along with that, there's a survival mode where you go on a continuous killing spree across all of the maps in the game. Each stage ends with you facing off against 2 bosses instead of 1, and you even get to face unique encounters like Rando using his sword instead of his guns, and you can unlock an extra character at the very end. Sadly, survival mode isn't that good. It's easy at first and the difficulty ramps up with each stage, but once you beat the hidden character, the game resets at the first stage but with stronger enemies and continues to do so until you either die or quit the mode. Something more compelling is that if you do the hard mode versions of every story mission, you can collect wanted posters that will unlock extra characters that you can use instead of Gojiro. The cutscenes will still treat you as Gojiro, but in gameplay you can hear unique barks and shouts.
You won't get me that easy!
I looked at the list and there seems to be potentially 47 characters in total, but I already got the best ones. As much as I like Samurai Western, there are some issues to the gameplay. This is a minor nitpick, but there's really no variety to the game besides the hacking and slashing. I personally have no problem with that, since that's why I'm playing it, but it's definitely something that would put off a player looking for novelty. There's really only one mission that stands out from the rest, where you have to rescue kids strapped to bombs, but it's still just hacking your way towards the kids and then hacking the bombs off them. The later gameplay gets really hard when it comes to dodging bullets. It's really easy in the early game, but the window for dodging is a lot tighter, and it ends up feeling like deflecting shots are more important in the end game than dodging. This is also not that big a deal for me personally, since I expect the challenge to ramp up, but it's something to take note of before diving into the game. While the game offers a wide variety of swords and stances, I really only gravitated towards high stance swords initially, and then dual wield swords by the end of the game, since I noticed they had a better chance of deflecting shots with the dual wields. The only other stance that's worth using are one-handed style swords because they're the only kind that let you double jump, and this is something that I think should have been an innate ability for Gojiro. There are some enemy placements that are too far out of reach for Gojiro without double jumping, and when you prefer to use one sword type over the one-handed versions, it sucks that you can't reach those opponents. Not only that, but some of the level design in Samurai Western wasn't really that well considered with the game's controls. I felt this the most in the Abandoned Mine. There are some tight walkways, and it doesn't help that your sword attacks all have a forward momentum to them, so you can't do any precise attacks in the more precarious areas. This could have been alleviated by either making a double jump innate to Gojiro, or giving him a range attack like a bow or daggers. Hell, he's shown in an early cutscene throwing a Tanto knife at a wall, so there's definitely a model for that knife in the game. Also, for some reason, L2 lets you go into a first-person mode. I don't really get the point of this because it's the worst possible way to play the game. You have no sense of space in the world, the camera controls are sluggish, and you don't really have a good visual indicator when you're dodge spinning, so I'm pretty sure I ate a lot more bullets in this mode than in third person. My last issue with the game is more to do with how I played it. I was emulating the game on PC, and if you notice any differences with gameplay and cutscene footage in the video, it's because I had to play the game at different modes in order to show you the best experience. If you run the game on hardware mode, you get crisp models and smooth gameplay, but the cutscenes don't render properly, and there are these ugly black lines that cut through the shots. Those go away if you play the game in software mode, but that mode isn't properly equipped to deal with all the carnage you can cause in gameplay. But even with all those problems, I still think Samurai Western is worth playing. It's got a great presentation, and the gameplay is just compelling enough to get you to beat the game in an afternoon. This game is short, even with 16 missions. It's not hard to blitz through it in a few hours, but it's a pretty fun few hours. It's a small, goofy game, and I love this kind of production. I hope I can find more games that are as quirky as Samurai Western.
Mr. Samurai! Please, be careful.